I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today is part 2 of 3 parts of Running with Scissors by Annie. Today what we're going to start with is Mesh Pocket C. And this pocket's a very simple pocket to work with. What we're going to do is start by adding the binding. Once we get the binding sewn on, we're going to sew on one zipper. And you can see here I do have a double pull zipper, and that's what you're going to want for this pocket. And then once we remeasure it, we'll go and add the bottom binding onto it. So I'm going to take care of getting all 3 of those pieces sewn on, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. I want to show you how the zipper's going on because it's a little bit different than what we normally do with Annie's patterns. What you're going to do is set the binding on top of the zipper tape, pin it down, then sew it down. So whereas we normally sew the zipper right sides down, this time we're doing it with right sides up. Now it's time to prepare the rest of pocket C. You can see I've trimmed off a small portion of the mesh. Double check your pattern. It will tell you exactly how to measure it and how to trim it off. Now what I'm doing is just attaching the bottom binding so that bottom edge is nicely finished off. One of the things that I really like about Annie's patterns is that all of the edges are nicely finished off, so you don't end up with raw edges any place in your bags. So what I'm doing here is simply taking some Wonder Clips and pinning this down so that I can then take it over to my sewing machine and sew it. When I do sew it, I will be using my 10D foot for my Bernina 790 plus. So you can see that side's ready to go. And now we're going to attach the top binding to the zipper. The only thing that I do different with this than in any other case is I do try to line up the distance between the zipper teeth and the binding. I just would like to see a nice even distance between the top binding and the bottom binding. And that's just something I eyeball. I do not sit there with a ruler and measure it. So next what I'm going to do is just top stitch along both of these pieces of binding on my machine. And I will again use my Bernina 10D foot. I just find that easiest whenever I've got to do binding. Alright, you can see here I have finished my pocket C. It's all done. It's all sewn down. And now what I'm going to do is just simply add it to my pile of my other pockets that we've already worked on. And time to move on to the next. The next thing I am going to work on are my pockets G and H and my vinyl plate and my vinyl piece. The vinyl piece I'm going to do just like I did the mesh piece. So I'll start off by attaching my binding, attaching the binding to the zipper, then the binding to the zipper there, and then the bottom piece. I'll come back when all these are done. We'll add them to what we already have done. Start assembling our bag. So I'll be back in just a minute. I believe I have all my pieces. This is my second time filming this, by the way, because when I tried it before, I didn't have all my pieces. So I think I've got all my pieces now. So let's go through them and just double check one last time. Annie does a great job of alphabetizing them, so it makes it really easy to make sure you've got all of them. Here's my body case. That's the whole thing. So that's my first one. Then I've got my pockets A and B, which this is pocket B, this is pocket A. So we're up to B. So now I need to find my C. This is my C, which is a mesh pocket. My D, which is a vinyl zipped pocket. Then my E, which is another vinyl pocket. F. Alright. Then G and H, which are both fabric pockets. I have my handle. I have my center facing, and I have one bonus item. There is the ability to make a little pressing board and Annie talks about it in there. I had this laying around, which is ironing board cover material. So I just covered mine with that instead of just binding it. So I have a fabric piece so that I can stick pins in one side to hold things down, and then on this side I have ironing material. So our next step is going to be to put all of this together, which I think is going to be a blast. So that's it for today. The last couple of things I did was the facing for F, E, which you can see, here's E, and then what else did I do? And then D. So these were the last three pieces that I did, was D, E, and F. So now you can see what those look like done. I have definitely made a mess here. The first thing I did wrong was I went ahead and sewed the handle on, and I wasn't supposed to yet. So we're going to kind of ignore the fact that I did that wrong. And then I'm going to come over to this side and I'm going to start making all of my different lines. Obviously, because I want to protect Annie's pattern, I'm going to do it off camera, and then we're going to start putting everything together again. So I'll be back in just a second. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is attach fabric C. So what I've done is I've lined it up across the top and the bottom, and I opened the zipper up. So what I'm going to do is stitch across the top, down the side, across the bottom, up again, and then I'll go to the center here and I will stitch down and then back up again. So just to get it sewn, you just have to make sure that you've got the zipper open when you go to do that. Otherwise you're going to have two zippers to get into one side and nothing to get into the other. So I'll be back when that's done. Alright, I've attached the mesh pocket C. Now I'm going to do pocket E, which happens to be a vinyl pocket. And again, real simple. This time I'm going to just stitch right around here. I'm not going to stitch across the top here. Alright, and then we come back and do another pocket. Alright, so here's my mesh pocket. That's down. Next thing we have to do is add this piece, which is pocket G. So I've got my pocket G on there, and I don't know that you can see it, but I do have lines all along here that I have to sew up to here. So what we've done is we've put our vinyl bag down, we've stitched that down. Now we're putting G over it, and then we're going to stitch from the bottom up to here, turn around and come back again, then move down, do the same thing. So what will happen is this will give us equal pockets all the way across. I'm going to get that done next. At this point I've made a complete mess out of my cutting table, and it's time to clean it up. I will be back again very soon to show you the next steps. So at this point what you should have is your bag, full size of your bag, and then one inside side of your pockets completed, which means that next time we're going to do our second side, we're going to be doing our front, and then we are also going to be attaching the zipper to zip the whole thing up, and then our running with scissors will be completely finished and will be all ready to be tucked into our take a stand bag for our next sewing journey. So thank you so much for sticking around with me today, and I hope you come back really soon to watch the next part of Running with Scissors by Annie. Thanks. Bye.